Love and Rain by Nika Tsitskishvili. Hayek. Hayek! Prepare the parcels for a safe descent. We are approaching the destination. Hayek lifted his clumsy backside from the chair and headed toward the storage area. He checked the boxes one by one. He found all of them sealed and securely bound. Nothing could escape his pricked-up ears. Not a rustle was heard in the room. Everything is fine, boss. We are ready. This was the second time he was performing this job. Everything was simple. They were tasked with moving packages from one place to another. During transportation, the boxes must not be opened or damaged. If he heard any kind of noise from within, it meant the cargo was damaged, and he had to inform the boss immediately. No questions, no discussions, not even the whisper of a thought. For him, this was the most comfortable job in the world. The boss was the one who had taken Hayek in back in the day. He gave him a place to live. Hayek had never asked his name. The descent process had never been easy before. Everyone took their place and fastened their seatbelts. The ship began its entry into the atmosphere. Hayek was pressed against the back of his seat like wallpaper. For a moment he felt as if his breastbone touched his spine, trapping his entrails between them. However, the ship's speed eventually decreased, followed finally by its rough slamming upon the surface. Hayek looked around. It seemed the landing had been carried out safely. Now it was necessary to wait until the ship was cleared of passengers and crew, so they could move the cargo from storage unnoticed. Since there was no longer a rush, Hayek took a handful of carefully wrapped breakfast crumbs from one of his pockets and poured them onto his right palm. Then he fished a matchbox out of his other pocket, brought it close and opened it so skillfully with his seemingly thick and inflexible fingers that the cockroach inside landed directly on his calloused palm and immediately set about consuming the remains. Hayek stared blankly at the events unfolding before his nose, and when the cockroach successfully completed its duty, he promptly returned it to its designated apartment, then whisked the box back into his pocket. Hayek, aren't there enough cockroaches on Earth that you have to carry one in your pocket? Or is that one different, huh? Maybe it makes a special sound when crushed. Don't you want us to check? Asked Melby, draining a bottle full of water in a noisy gulp, then squeezing it to imitate the sound of crushing, before tossing it into the bin. Hayek said nothing, as always. He only listened to the boss and spoke to him only when necessary. Annika's childhood was unlike anyone else's past. She was fortunate enough to be born into a family that, with its entire being, resisted the changes caused by humanity's rapid development and hid from the blessings of civilization in a corner that, by a series of astonishing coincidences, still bore the status of unclaimed. Annika knew what the phosphorus semi-transparent green of spring looked like. She had never experienced the stress caused by density. She was not troubled by claustrophobia. She did not know what happened in megapolises packed like beehives. Annika had never tasted artificial meat. She had never received a sunburn. People like her were perceived by the majority as underdeveloped beings lagging behind technology. They were not registered and consequently possessed no rights. The representative of God did not consider them to be in the Creator's image, yet Annika had never heard of anyone who would personally voice the word of God, a word so difficult for others to perceive and understand. When Annika turned 17, her curiosity reached its peak. She had to go where the Zon ended and that world began, the world her parents so desperately fled. A pre-prepared backpack was stuffed with items and food necessary for the journey. At the end of the rainy season, Annika took one last look at her homestead, and without asking her parents, she took the road leading to the site where Amma stood many years ago. Clearing a path through the vegetation was not at all easy. Annika swung a rusty, half-worn machete with force. The line of the trail she cut lengthened, the beds of the river branches gradually narrowed, and the water level steadily receded. Annika, Annika, Annika. The breeze brought the cries of her parents chasing after their daughter from afar. The sound reaching her ears gave Annika even more energy and the desire to reach a place she had never been and to see what she had never seen. Soon the impenetrable forest transformed into sparse growth, then vanished entirely and was replaced by scrubland. The river lost itself in the parched and cracked earth. As she approached the end of the scrubland, Annika began to scan the area diligently. It was getting dark. The horizon line was completely covered by a cloud of dust, and nothing could be seen beyond it. The cries of Annika's parents lost their form and turned into an indistinct sequence of sounds. When the sun fully set, the mass of the dust cloud was pierced by a blinding light, and Annika realized the zon had ended. Behind the curtain of dust lay the megapolis. As the girl moved toward the horizon, intending to cross the wasteland, an out-of-place sound reached her sharp hearing. Annika turned with her usual agility and readied her machete, though she could distinguish nothing in the scrubland lost in the darkness. "Mother, father, is it you?" No one answered her. Suddenly she felt a slight prick in the area of her neck. Then everything became blurred as the megapolis hidden behind the cloud of dust. Then the girl fell onto her back. She had never seen a starless sky before. "Hayek, check if any of the dispatches were damaged during landing. Undo the ropes. We start unloading in an hour." Hayek nodded to the boss and silently went to check the boxes again. Melby was reclined in his chair, whistling a melody heard in childhood, occasionally using his own invented words as lyrics, because his memory failed him. Though dissatisfied with the result, he ultimately preferred to return to whistling the wordless melody. Others entertained themselves by playing cards with the boss. When Hayek returned to the cargo department and set about executing the order, he noticed that the fastener of one of the dispatches had snapped during the landing. However, the box had not shifted from its place, nor were there any signs of damage. Despite this, Hayek decided to open the box to ensure the dispatch was undamaged. In case a problem was discovered, he would inform the boss of everything, and thus no harm would be done. When Hayek lifted the lid of the box, the door opened, and the room was momentarily filled with Melby's childhood melody. Then silence fell. "Hayek, did you forget to read the contract? Let me remind you that we have no right to touch the dispatch. This isn't your cockroach's matchbox to open whenever you want." Hayek did not utter a sound. He was staring at the contents of the box. Curiosity also overcame Melby, and standing beside Hayek, he glimpsed a sleep capsule inside the box. In the capsule lay a young girl of about 20, breathing monotonously. "She has the face of an angel. And have you seen such delicate skin anywhere, Hayek? Even if she used the most expensive sunscreen, it would be impossible." And when he realized Hayek was lost in thought and not listening, Melby struck him hard on the shoulder and added, "Judge not, and ye shall not be judged, Hayek. This girl is likely not registered, so our conscience is as clean as the representative of God's." Hayek paid no attention to Melby this time either. He was lost in his own thoughts. "Hayek, the dispatch isn't damaged. Let's seal the box and forget what happened if you want them to contact us for the next flight too." This time Hayek successfully managed to shake off his thoughts and silently accepted Melby's suggestion. They carefully sealed the box. The dispatch looked as good as new. Then they undid the ropes and headed for the door. "You know, Hayek, what I wouldn't give for such a girl on this God-forsaken land." Melby sighed and voiced the nostalgia-saturated melody with new words. "No matter how we veil the truth, we remain but cockroaches, trapped within a box." Hayek, I think it fits the melody well. What do you say?" Melby's face lit up with the joy of discovering the right sequence of words.